I'm on the island of Aegina, Greece, and behind me is the Temple of Aphaia, built around 490 to 500 BC. About 50 years after this island was the first one to make coins in the Greek city-states and really the whole continent of Europe. So, has our money progressed since the time of Aegina, or have we fallen behind? Well, that depends who you ask. The bankers and the government that print the money, or the people that have to work and labor for that money. So how did it happen that the people of Aegina were the first to mint coins in all of Europe? Well, Aegina is an island about 25 miles off the coast of Athens behind me. So because they didn't have a lot of resources, they were very good at shipping and they were very adventurous, and so they shipped to all corners of kind of the known world at the time, 500 BC. So they went as far as the African coast, or Gaul, which is now France, and even all the way up to Crimea. And so in their travels to places like what's now modern-day Turkey, they went to Lydia, which were the people that produced the actual first printed coins about 100 years earlier. And they saw that their coins were made of electrum, which is gold and silver mix that was found in riverbeds in Turkey. It was about 70 to 90% gold and the rest silver. Now, the people from Aegina did not have access to gold, but what they did have access to was silver, most likely from the island of Sifnos, whose silver mine was at its peak at the time when they started printing the coins. So the coins in Aegina were only made of silver, and they had a very distinctive design of a raised turtle on one side and on the other a square punch. And they were very popular even in Athens, where they called them the thick dracham. And they were about 12.6 grams of silver, which means that about 2.5 of them made up 1 full ounce of silver. So the Aegean turtle coin did not last long, because by 457 BC, Athens invaded Aegina and pushed the people out along with their money, and in came the Athenian owl coin, which was also made of silver. So 25 years ago, coins were made of real money that was valuable to exchange no matter where you are in the world or what year you are in, to where we are now. So looking at the history of money in the US, we all know that in 1933 they signed the act to confiscate your gold at $20 an ounce, and when they did that, they upped the price to about $34 an ounce, raising it by 70%, so they screwed you over. And even then, they continued to agree to exchange gold for $35 an ounce to foreign governments until 1971, when Richard Nixon said they will temporarily suspend converting gold for 35 US dollars for foreign governments. 53 years later, we're still waiting for that temporary act to be undone. Now, to force somebody to sell their property for a price that you say that they don't agree to is theft. Let's call it what it is. So, is confiscating people's gold and replacing them with paper bills actual progress? Yes, if you are a central banker or the government, that is progress, where you can debase money slowly but surely to the point where the people holding it have zero value to it. Most currencies start with some amount of backing to it, whether it's 100%, 90, 50, whatever. They all eventually go to zero backing. So paper money is essentially counterfeit. And they used to write on the money, to counterfeit is death. But ironically, they put that on paper money, which is counterfeit, isn't it? Now, counterfeiting has been going on for a long time, with governments debasing the amount of precious metals in their coins to physical, just paper bills that don't represent anything. And this started with goldsmiths. These were the precursors to banks, really. You would deposit your gold with a goldsmith and they would give you a receipt. And eventually they realized, the goldsmiths, that not everybody comes to take their gold out all the time. So they could just start writing receipts for amounts of gold, and spend it like money to buy assets or whatever they needed to buy, and it would go into circulation. And at some point, people started to get suspicious, or rumors started, and they would line up at the goldsmith to get their money out, and that was the first bank run. Now back then, I don't know if they took these goldsmiths and strung them up in the town square like they should have, but as long as central bankers can keep counterfeiting this money without the people getting too angry and doing the same thing to them that they did to the goldsmiths that counterfeited their money, they will continue to do this. So in the US, the Federal Reserve shoots for a gentle sloping 2% yearly inflation, meaning basically they're stealing 2% of your money a year, but hoping you won't notice it. But that adds up and gets compounded over the years. And so the US dollar lost about 98% of its value since the Federal Reserve was created in 1913. And just realize that no currency is special. They all go to zero, most in about 60 years. And we are very close to that point if you consider the point where Nixon made gold non-convertible in 1971. And just to give you an idea of where we stand in the US, because they make it seem so complicated about debt, deficit, GDP, interest, and all of that, I will simplify it for you. So if the US was a person and you knocked off 8 zeros off of all these numbers, their situation would look like this. We currently make 5 trillion on taxes that we receive approximately. So that's like somebody making $50,000 a year. However, we spend right now about 6.9 trillion. So that's like spending 69,000, call it 70,000 a year. So in other words, you're spending $20,000 more a year than you make. Oh, and also we have that little $35 trillion in debt, which is like having $350,000 in debt when you only make $50,000 a year. And the interest you have to pay off that $350,000 in debt is about $10,000 a year, which is low right now. Now, most banks wouldn't lend to somebody with a credit profile like that, but that's not the case in the US. But at some point, the interest on that 35 trillion in debt will be more than we take in taxes. And when that happens, or when we get close to that level, it is basically game over. And so they are probably planning for something like that to happen, where they have some kind of debt jubilee, or knock a few zeros off the currency or the debt and go into central bank digital currencies, where the value of the currency will be even worth less than the coins or paper bills that you currently hold in your hand. And of course, there will be a lot more control with a central bank digital currency, where they can put a time limit on when the money disappears, what you can spend it on, and deperson you if you say the wrong things on Facebook or somewhere in the UK or something like that. So our real money keeps getting debased to the point where it's just electrons on a computer. As a matter of fact, with the high price of cocoa these days, one of those fake gold foil coins with the chocolate inside may have more value in the chocolate than, say, our quarter or $1 Sacagawea coin or something along those lines. Think about that. So we went from having real money to eventually just electrons that somebody controls what you're able to buy and sell. So 1,000 years from now in Aegina, if they dig up a 50 euro note, which has long been extinct or debased into hyperinflation, is there going to be any value to this? No, of course not. There's no intrinsic value. But if they were to dig up this ancient Greek silver coin of around, I don't know, 300 to 400 BC, this still has value, even though the government or whoever minted it has long since been dead. And if you dig up this $100 bill somewhere in the US in 1,000 years, will it have any value? No, it won't. Matter of fact, if you dig it up in 10, 20 years, it might not have any value. But if you dig up this silver coin 1,000 years from now, it will still have value, just like that ancient Greek coin that I just showed you. So it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. All currency gets debased to zero eventually. What can you do to prepare or protect yourself, the usual things: buy assets, precious metals, gold, maybe some silver, which hasn't been acting very well, assets like rental properties or stocks in companies that produce things that they can raise prices as inflation rises, like a Coca-Cola or something like that. That also has real earnings and pays you a dividend. Owning a business is also good, but it's obviously harder to do than buying a stock or maybe having some rental real estate or just holding some gold in your house or a safe deposit box. The problem is none of those things are a surefire solution, because you don't know what the government's going to do when they get desperate. For instance, the government can outlaw gold and silver like they did in the 1930s. Germany did the same during the Weimar hyperinflation. They even went into cafes and houses and checked people's wallets to make sure they didn't have any foreign currency, otherwise they would take it from them. The government can change the rules on rental real estate, which they have done by freezing prices on rents, and therefore your costs go up, insurance and heat and water and all of that, but you're not allowed to raise the rent, and so you start losing money. So that could backfire too. So even buying stock in a company could go bad, because whatever they sell, the government could put price freezes or price controls on it, so that the company goes from making money to now losing money. So guys, do the simple things first. Get out of debt. Don't pay interest on anything that doesn't increase in value, meaning cars, electronics, clothes, anything like that. And diversify into things that are real or produce a product that makes money and pays a dividend or something along those lines. So guys, do these things to prepare by diversifying your assets, but then just go out and live your life, because all these bad things could happen tomorrow, or they could happen 30 years from now, or not even in your lifetime. There are plenty of people that started hunkering down after Nixon took away the convertibility of gold in 1971, and they started buying bunkers and beans and stocking up on supplies and hiding in their bomb shelter or whatever, and 50 years passed them by, and it's almost like they're disappointed that the collapse didn't happen yet. So guys, I hope you like this one. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.